welcome you all to the inaugural episode of the 3P Leadership Webinar Series. As some of you know, probably that 3P, we are now celebrating our 30th year of existence. And this we have had the privilege of servicing a multitude of organizations, be it Indian large promoter-driven groups, multinationals, all kinds. And we do best what we are known to do, which is executive search and board level hirings. And while we like to do work everywhere, but our focus still stays on manufacturing and engineering and the process side of the business across all functions. That's what we've been doing for the last 30 years. And very recently, so we always try and get new practices in, and we've in recent times started transition management, which is to put senior leaders into very specific projects for specific time, right? So that's a bit on us, and now let's move on to our star today, which is the very accomplished, right? Vikram Bector. Vikram, as many of you may know, is the president and group chief human resource officer for the $2 billion Piramal group, headquartered out of Mumbai. That's where he sits out of. He's now got 30 years of exposure and experience, and across diverse sectors. He's worked with information technology, he's worked with financial businesses, he's worked with consulting, he's worked with, the whole bit. And with great companies like Reliance, Tata Motors, Cipla, Deloitte. For the last 4 years now, he's actually been with his current organization, which is the Piramal Group. And of course, he's had a good stint at Aditya Birla. So the who's who, if I may say, of the Indian organizations. While he's obviously a very passionate human resource practitioner, but he has deep expertise in mergers, acquisitions. He's managed quite a bit of change initiatives globally across the globe. In recent times, I think he's worked with many of the which I would like to make public, which because it just gets lost here and there, is that he's actually got the the Piramal Group as in Forbes top list globally as one of the best places to work as a top employer brand, right? So that's quite an achievement. To the topic now. So the topic for today is evolving leadership in the dynamic workspace. And I would hasten to add here that it is about not particularly about COVID, what we all are going through. I guess it's beyond that. I would imagine that corporates and organizations are going through a lot of tumultuous times in the last 15 to 20 years. And I guess that is where the leadership has to evolve and has evolved, if I may say. And that is where we want to bring in insights from Vikram on some various topics. So Vikram, you with me, because I lost you on the camera. I can't see you.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me and see me?
All right. So Vikram, let me begin. You see, I did some research. I'm a headhunter at the end of the day. So I did some research before we thought we should get onto this. And I came across a recent article that you had put in the Economic Times, I think. And you had a very nice quote there by the poet Rumi. And I think that wrapped up what leadership is. And I quote from your article, which is from Rumi, which is, if everything around you seems dark, then look again, for you may be the light. That very well, I think, says everything and anything about a leader, but it's not that simple, it's complex. And I think that's where we need you to tell us and walk us through. You went on to mention in the same article that, leaders of today are, and I think this was more to do with what everyone's going through right now, but the leaders of tomorrow are more connected. They involve others by encouraging new ideas. They share their fields authentically. I think the word is authentic and honest. Shams are out. And while looking for small wins, I think that's to build an optimistic kind of a environment. I think culture, so and so. So well said. So the first part, which I want to, so I think we will take a little bit on what leadership, how it has evolved, but what is leadership, right? So my question to you is, logic says that to be a leader, there need to be people, right, who need to be led. So would you feel that a leader, by virtue of is leader there by virtue of being in that position? Hierarchically, we get into positions because of the number of years we do, etc., etc. Or is it based on his experience or exposure, potential? So what's your cue? Are there many leaders who are in a position where they are because of how they grew in the system? This is double-edged because there could be people who are who may not need to be there. You got my question. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Pradeep. And first off, congratulations to you and the entire team 3P. I think it's a phenomenal journey, 3 decades. So phenomenal, and may you continue to inspire people. Maybe you continue to place leaders. Good wishes to you and the entire team.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else also, please convey my regards to Nirmit as well.
Sure.
And I think, and thank you for having me. And more importantly, to all the people, wonderful people, almost 100 people who turned up. I can see people from Muscat, from various parts of the country and overseas. So very warm welcome to this call. I also see it's very humbling. There are some very experienced HR leaders also on the call. We should, so it's humbling to be able to be on this platform and share things and insights. Equally, there's a lot to be learned from many of them who are on the call too. But coming back to your question, I think today more than ever, it's not about position, Pradeep. And my view is, of course, there are 100,000 definitions of leadership, but please take this as mine.
Right.
My view is that leadership today, especially if you're looking at millennials and others, is neither because of hierarchy, but it's also all about expertise. People align to you, people learn from you, people, so it is first, it's not 2, 3 things. Leadership is not always a he. So I would urge us to think of leaders as she and everybody else. So
right.
I think that is first thing. So the second most important thing is whether it's a he or a she, I think people drift towards leaders because of their expertise. Right. Today, and what people can learn from that leader. So I don't think it is either position or hierarchy, but it's about expertise today. And more companies, we are drifting towards a more expertise related, economy. I often joke that if you look at, the super specializations, how they are evolving, the evolution of super specializations is not a joke. But what I'm about to say, for example, now, you would no longer just go to a general physician. You will go to an expert. You will go to a person who specializes in lung diseases, etc. So look at the super specializations in the medical field. Look at the super specializations in human resources, in marketing. So I think it's a world of super specializations, and people are excited to work with people who have much to offer on a technical side, on functional experts. And that is why, whether it is, people like Bill Gates or people like Steve Jobs, people love them for their understanding of science, of technology, of function, of form.
Right.
So my hypothesis, and I've also tried to personally be an expert on something in HR, rather than, being a leader who's there because of a CHRO. So I don't support that notion of position or hierarchy, actually.
Very well said. I think it's not only HR, as you rightly said. This is all pervasive now. This is going across functions. We are seeing leaders, if we were to look at people who manage not countries, sorry, I don't want to go there, but people who manage companies and organizations and enterprises could typically come from any facet, from any function. And I think that is because a leader is a leader per se, you know, and as you very rightly said. So, well, you did mention that there are 1,000 definitions, but whom would you define as a leader? Are leaders born? Is it a behavioral trait? Or can one become a leader by design? Can I design to become a leader, right? And then, you know, comes in that big debate which everyone writes about, and there are discussions that the distinction between a manager and a leader. I know this is often talked, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity of asking you this question.
So, first of all, I'm in the business of leadership development.
I'm aware.
My business runs on leadership development and
Right.
spotting potential leaders. So I certainly believe and that leaders are made.
Right.
You know, everybody is born a leader,
Right.
and that potential exists. So it is by our own mindsets that we may box ourselves as, oh, I'm not a leader. I'm only, you know, X or Y, or I'm only a subject matter expert. So I would say, in our purest form, all of us are born leaders. Look around us in schools, in colleges, you'll see people demonstrating leadership. I think as we grow, many of us get hooked to it because we've start developing those muscles.
Right.
So I would say pure potential wise, the seed within us, we are all born leaders.
Right.
After that, some practice it more, some go to those leadership gyms and practice their muscles more and develop them more than others. So that's my view. And then there are people like you who are in the business of spotting those leaders, and people like me who are in the business of spotting, developing, nurturing inside an organization. So, you know,
but
there's
would that mean that some of them have that little bit of, you know, nose ahead than the others because they were born? And I think born is a little extension. It's the formative years, you know, where you were born, where you went to school, how was the family environment. I think, I mean, it's fair or unfair, I don't know, but I think that also impacts as someone grows. Which sports you played? Were you a team guy? Were you a solo guy? And I think these all come from your DNA, if I may say. Would that, I mean, you're an expert on leadership, so, you know, I just got curious to ask that.
I think, so everybody is born with a potential.
Right.
Let me quote, you know, famous saying that, you know, potential for what? So there are, you know, people say there are two most important days in anybody's life. One is the day you were born.
Right.
The other is the day when you figure out why you were born or what were you born to do.
Wow. Okay. The day you hit nirvana.
So I think a lot of people know the day when they're born, and then you discover some people figure out leadership or what they were born to do in few years, in 10 years. There are people like Sachin Tendulkar, the great cricketer, who at the age of 8 or 10 figures out that he's born to play cricket for the country.
Right.
There are geniuses who figure out at the age of, you know, 11. And then there are some not so geniuses, people like myself. You know, I worked till the age of 30 in sales, and you and I were in sales together.
Right.
And then I figured I was born to be in HR. So there are some late bloomers like me too.
Right.
And, but the fact is, each one of us does figure out, especially when they were born, everybody knows. But why you were born, what were you born to do, what is your purpose?
Right.
So I think that, you know, if we spend a lot of time understanding our potential, each one of us has a leadership potential.
Right.
The question is potential for what? Somebody will be a cricketer, somebody will be a HR director, somebody will be in sales. But I think then it's about understanding that potential and honing it, going to the gym for it, developing the muscles for them, and then excelling.
Right. Right. So, which brings me to the next facet. I mean, you gave a very nice understanding to all of us, I guess. Is leadership physical, sports, intellectual, emotional, or is it a combination? I think I know the answer, but I just want to hear from an expert like you. And these are in different, proportions, which possibly I think eventually will lead to the individual leadership style which a leader may, develop into. Uh, and would you want to comment on that observation that dynamic leaders adapt varying leadership styles to manage the complexities of the current day business? So intellectual, emotional, physical, all those. What's your view on that?
Let me answer it in a slightly different way, and maybe we'll arrive at the same answer by asking or by sharing what do we look for in leadership or in leaders. I think the answer might lie there. What do organizations look for in P&L leadership or people who are in leadership roles?
Right.
And as you rightly said before that, leadership is not a role. Leadership is a behavior. You could have the junior most person displaying leadership and you
Right.
could have the senior most person not displaying leadership. So leadership is a trait, a behavior. It's not a role. That we all cleared. And I know I haven't answered your question about difference between manager and leader, but I'll come to that.
Right.
But coming back to your question, I feel most companies, including ours, we look at leaders who are good at doing three or four things. One is you look forward to a leader of a vision, whether it's of a country, a leader of society, a leader of any public enterprise or corporate enterprise. We look for leaders who have a vision for what do you want to do, where do you
Right.
want to take the country, the company, the society. So certainly a vision, and any leader who has no vision, compelling vision, who cannot show us the future, is somebody who we don't look up to. The
Okay.
second is the ability to then execute on that vision, because while we have some great visionaries who are very poor at execution, so we in the corporate sector, as you know, we all certainly look for people who
Right.
can visualize, who, as they say, have a helicopter view and
Yeah.
also a worm view.
Right.
So how you go into the ability to execute. The third is about nurturing relationships, and somebody on the chat also talked about that, because today, if you have to seed collaboration, and innovation, you can only create innovation and collaboration through relationships and through cross-functional teaming.
Right.
That is very important. And the last is personal agility. At times like these, we look for people who have agility. We look for people who can morph, change. If I again use a sports analogy, when you look at the different formats of the game, the
Yeah.
kind of shots that a batsman has to have in a 5-day match versus a 1-day match versus 2020 is very different. And you've seen innovations like the helicopter shot,
Yeah.
etc., which have come into cricket. The
Right.
point I'm making is agility to mold yourself in a corporate setting is very important. And I think, so really just to recap, four things you usually look for: ability to strategize, think about the big picture, ability to execute, ability to innovate through networks and collaborations, and certainly the whole notion of agility. How do you change? How do you adopt,
Hmm.
given changes outside?
Right.
So those are the four things I think we look for leaders, and therefore, to answer your question at the heart, you have to be connected. Leaders can't do all of these if you're not able to win the followership, win the hearts of people. So in
Right.
a way, they say leadership is not leadership; is actually followership. So even if you see the construct of, so a leader is not leading a troops from the front.
Right.
He is actually either by the side or at the back of the battalion or the platoon, if
Right.
you have to visualize. So those days of people following a leader who's standing and marching in front are over. The
Hmm.
days where a leader is either on the side or she's behind you, yeah,
Right.
again, the days of the future.
Yeah, I mean, we could go the other side and talk about service leadership, which is much in discussion and trend, I think, in the last few years. But we will not go that side because that's a topic in itself. Typically Mahatma Gandhi and Luther King service leaders, so as to say. Let me go on to a little different part. You see, I believe in the last 2 decades or 15 years, from 2000 onwards, particularly in India, we have seen a very different kind of economic environment. I'm not talking about up downs, but I'm saying, we have opened up, right? And along with that, I think we had a generation or generations coming in, and they get called by Z, Y, boomers. We are boomers, but the Z, Y, and whatever. And they come with a different set of notions. They come with a different should I say what, take on things in life, right? Which I think is a challenge in itself, because today you will, I'm sure, in the many companies within the group, you would have companies which will be younger in terms of age, mean, and in terms of older, depends on what business they are in, or there would be businesses which have a combination of, if not 4, at least 3 generations running. Right? The complexity of managing these in today's world by the leader, it's a dynamic environment, externally any which way, and internally the lead, if I may say, the troops, they continue to go through generational changes and evolution, challenging the status quo. Right. Now, that's a big one for leaders. I go by your agility, adaptability, which we talked just a little bit back, right? But what would you have to kind of comment on that? How to manage these multi-generations in your organization today?
I think I would say with a lot of common sense.
Right.
I have, challenged. I've had multiple meetings with very senior leaders in many organizations and even in public forums. And I'm going to say something which is a little, challenging for many people. I think we sometimes use double standards. And I call this out to senior leaders who have kids, and many of you, as you know, who have kids who are beyond teenage. So when I speak to them, the double standards that I challenge people is that we use double standards. Why don't we use the same standards as we use at home? At home, my daughter and son don't listen to me unless I listen to them intently.
Fair.
They have a different take on life. Right. So I believe at home things get sorted when I start to respect their point of view, and then I start to deeply engage with them and listen to them.
Right.
Where I call out senior leaders is, why aren't you doing it at the same in the workforce? When you go to the office, it's the same 25, 26, 27-year-old who's telling you something. Why aren't you patiently listening? Why do you have a higher listening hat at home, but at work?
Right.
So I think sometimes we have those skills, but we forget to turn on the skills at the workplace. We turn them on at home. Right. Similarly to the youngsters, I've often said, hey, I see you so verbose, so challenging at home. Why are you getting scared to speak up if they do? Please use the same challenging mindset which you use at home to bring about change and innovation in the workplace. And many workplaces which are able to do that suddenly see the unleashing of talent power. And I can tell you, even a small example in the current times, how the youth can change the world. In some of the poorest districts of India, Niti Aayog is running a campaign which is called Nana Nani or the Dada Dadi campaign.
Oh yes, I read it. Yes,
It's a very simple concept, and we are at a Piramal Foundation. We are working on that. The concept is very simple. How do you mobilize volunteers, youth, who will just make a simple call to unrelated parents of that generation to say, how are you doing? Are you receiving your medicine? Are you feeling safe? And then connecting to them to the government delivery, whether it's the nearest clinic. So those were started in 25 districts with 10,000 volunteers.
Right.
The kind of power unleashed by the youth, this was not an idea given by a senior person in the organization. It came from the ground up. The point I'm making is, that if both generations were to be respectful and do what they naturally do in their
Right.
natural settings, I
Right.
think the problems won't be there, and that's what I've seen in most of our organizations. So when both generations start to be their natural selves, this differences don't remain.
I get you there, and I can relate. I have kids in that age, and I'm sure many audience also do have, and I think they can relate to this. Then it brings to whether I like to believe it or not, but I'm getting a lot of questions on how do leaders take the pandemic, right? It was not on my roster, but I think they want to know from someone like you. Uh, if you could cite some real life examples, just like you did about the Dada Dadi program, from the current situation, where leadership, and this could be across, could become even sharper for us, because as they say, I go back to Rumi, if everything is dark, you could be the light, right? So what in your mind, a few beacons which you saw in these last 3-4 months? I think everyone will be happy to know that.
Sure. And also, I think there's a related question from a gentleman, Vikram Patel, saying which leadership trait was tested most during COVID. So I'll combine that with
Thanks for taking it. Yes.
yeah. I think the one thing that tested this whole notion of working for today as well as planning for tomorrow. What do
Right.
I mean by that? I think sometimes we think of life as being, why can't it be so simpler? Why do I have to do this short term and also think of the long term and create changes in the long term? But
Right.
so what I've learned is life is all about managing contradictions, managing opposites. So
Right.
that is something got tested. For example, a very simple thing today, most of our employees are concerned about safety. So
Right.
if as a leadership team, we are not thinking about whether it is enhancing medical premiums, whether it is making sure families are tested. So we at Piramal in our pharma business, we even said that we will request or we will expect people to get tested and we will pay for COVID testing, as frequent COVID testing as you want to do. So I
Right.
think if the concerns of the people, the point I'm making is you have to live in the here and now,
Right.
solve today's problems, focus on them, and not say, oh, okay, I'm busy solving the future business problem that what will business look like in 2020. So you
Right.
got today, what is needed today, and you also have to focus on what is needed tomorrow. So that's what I find is very, very challenging and exciting both. So how do you focus on the safety, security, the immediate concerns? Our offices have started opening. Some
Right.
of our team members go to office twice a week. Most 90% are working from home. How do you enable their work from home experience is good. We've polled our people at home. We are finding people are getting stressed. So you may say, why are you looking at today? I need to understand what's going on in people's mind. We are all working from home 90%, but
Right.
working from home has become stressful. Women have said that they are more stressed because there is both the caregiving role as also the working from home. Men who are working again have said the number of hours have gone up. So you might imagine this is such a here and now activity, but it's very important. If you
Right.
have to engage on and look at productivity of people today, I must address that as a leadership team. And at
Right.
the same time, how long will we work from home? What are the new models? What
Right.
are the new which we can do digital leadership, digital business? So we are
Right.
also working on which businesses can become digital, which interactions can become digital. In our real estate business, for example, people are not going to look at homes physically. So how do you create digital experiences using virtual reality, and making sure that we use technology to become more digital? So I think
Right.
this balance of contradictions, working on today and focusing on tomorrow, the here and now and the there and then are some of the challenges.
Got you. Got you. So while you gave us a few examples, I want to keep on moving in the same direction. You've had a large experience, right? As you rightly said, first as a trainer, then as a sales, and then eventually your calling, what you do now. Is there a, so there are two parts to this. And I think you answered one part, that is there an age or experience to leadership? I think you said, well, it takes time, but it is there. Do life experiences contribute to the leadership quotient in an individual, right? I believe yes. But what we would like to know, and I'm sure everyone around the table would, has there been a leader or multiple leaders in your professional and personal life, public life, who have inspired you over a period of time? Give us some examples, and that'd be really good for us to know.
Oh, sure. I think lots and lots of people. I don't have a vision of one person. I think multiple people. I could name 5 or 6, but depending on the time. I think the first early shapers for most people are the parents. So I'm born to a civil engineer. My father was, building power plants in Punjab, which is where I was born. So I was born to a civil engineer who was building power plants. And I think one of the things I learned from him was the whole notion of values.
Right.
So today, I would dare say that the world has a perception about civil engineers working in government departments.
Right.
And for me, the first value that I got was, I always used to wonder, why is it that the other people on Diwali get bigger baskets, more crackers, more sweets?
Right.
And I figured out that here is a man who is different. And when later on people would say, we don't really find honest civil engineers, I would always say, no, I know one. And, so I think you start to shape your values. So it's really my father was a very upright civil engineer and very proud. And I think I got my values from him. Because end of the day, you build your perceptions from where you start.
Right.
Moving on from family, my grandfather, who was a farmer. And as you know, many of you, if you ever worked in the hinterland of India, the caste system is very prevalent.
Right.
I have experienced that very, very close. And that's where formed up my belief, on equality. So today, who I am in terms of my feelings for gender, diversity, race, religion, and overall, even just the equality between young and old, I've shaped my beliefs from my grandfather, who really, I saw him. He spent his entire life uplifting a certain segment of society, which was something you don't even share a common dining table. Those people won't even sit on your table.
Right.
I think early lesson on quality were gone. There were 2 influences on the family. Business side, I would say 3 people I'd like to call out, 4 people actually. Dr. Santrup Mishra at the ABG, he is a person who actually created that excitement, the leadership in me on how HR can be centerpiece. So his courageous understanding and stand on HR issues, his boldness, his ability to think about how HR can be a strategic partner.
Right.
Prabir Jha, who was my boss for a long time in Tata Motors, again for his visioning, for his outspokenness, for again bringing about change. I was again very fortunate to, and the last 2 are, one would be Mr. Mukesh Ambani. Again, very, very fortunate to see him, his style of leadership, how to just think world class, whether it is the refinery in Gujarat, in Jamnagar, or the Geo launch, the ability to think big and execute on a large scale and bring in collaboration of the greatest executioner, the master planner, amazing personality. And the last, at least because of paucity of time on my list, is our current chairman, Mr. Piramal, for his ability to balance business. So I think our whole, purpose statement is, doing good and doing well. So how do you do good financially so that you can do well for the society? I think his unending passion for doing work, for India, for Bharat especially, not for us privileged Indians, but for the Bharat, I think is matched. And so that is something, how to balance business and purpose and serving. The seva bhav, or with the ability to serve people, is something I picked up from all of these great leaders. And my list is on and on, I think, but
so,
so read a
so,
book, you'll all find a mention there.
so no, I have a counter to that, and I was looking on the Q&A, and someone asked, and there's a reason why I don't put a name to the audience, whether Mukesh Ambani is a better guy or Tata is a better guy. We don't want to go there, right?
No, no, I will answer it. Let me
Okay,
answer
all right.
it. I think, see, your question is incorrect.
Okay,
If I was to ask you, who would you choose, your son or your daughter?
right,
I It will be an unfair question. I think the question that you should ask is, what have I learned from these two greats?
right,
Obviously, I did not pick the name of Mr. Tata. It's very obvious. But if you look at the work, I worked
right,
extensively in both Tata Steel and Tata Motors. It's
right,
always inspiration. My request is you should ask the question, what are you going to learn from each of these leaders? I think that's very important because this debate, I do not personally, an example I gave about my grandfather. Personally, I do not value inequality. I do not personally cherish comparisons because they
right.
don't serve any purpose.
Fair.
You know, we have far too long spent a lot of time, comparing lines. What do we do in life? We create a long line and there is a short line next to it. The
Right.
long line feels that it's very long because there is a short line standing next to it. But
That's
what
right.
does it serve us? So I think my request is if you flip the question and say,
Right.
what did you learn from Mr. Ambani? I've already shared. And what did you learn from the great work of
Yeah.
Mr. Tata? I could share that. So I
Fair.
would request you to flip the question rather than ask a question which has actually not a great question, I would say. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say that, but
No, that's all right. I mean, we'll get all kind of questions. So I flipped the question. Tell us about Mr. Tata.
I think I'm fortunate. There's a large part of blue in my blood too. So the Tata blue. I think again the ability to balance, good work with good business. The business side ethics. Again, if you look at the whole purpose, it's Tata serve with a lot of purpose. So I
Right.
think those are the things that strike you. Also, at the age that he is, look at his agility. He's
Right.
investing in startups. He's learning new businesses. So it amazes me. I think I would love to be him at his age,
Fair.
learning, investing, being agile. So those are the things I picked up.
Right. So before I move to the next topic, I think we talked about a few leaders. No one can, kind of refute that. Any common thread running through all of them? Maybe just one trait. Is it vision, or is it vision plus execution, or any one trait? Not. I
I,
know.
I
uh,
think
it's tough. Sorry.
vision certainly, and global vision, and
Right.
then humility to surround themselves with some excellent experts, because they are all people who have said they don't know all the answers. They may know, but they surround themselves with experts, who have all the answers. So the humility to know that I don't know everything about everything. So they surround themselves. So I would say that to me is the biggest trait.
So we've discussed for the last 30 minutes or so various aspects, and one aspect which comes across is, with the shift in the, is there, have you seen a shift, because you worked for so long, in leadership traits of professionals? And I ask you because over the past decade or so, businesses have become more demanding. We are now almost like the American economy, where we are looking at quarter basis, right? Which we never used to. Now we look at things quarter basis, and stuff is more on productivity, performance, and stuff like that. Have leaders also changed along with that, right? Because to bring those returns to the investors, to everyone involved, you need to change your leadership style. So any specific traits you see which leaders have
I think
adapted, they're agile. So,
I think lots has changed. The whole way of working has changed. Adaptation to, digital models. Today, you can get a loan in under a minute. So,
right,
imagine the back-end KYC processes, all the automation, the whole role of technology there. I think a lot has changed.
right,
Therefore, ability to one big trait today is in a leader who's up there is the ability to understand a micro trend
right,
and magnify it and allow junior people who are experts to kind of let them run with that idea, because
right,
you can't be a showstopper. You should be able to understand through data, through analytics, and through insight what's a micro trend before it becomes a macro trend, and you have to speedily allow that to be executed to
right,
encash on the opportunities faster than competition. But having said that, I think it's always been, remember, if there are no customers and there's no business, there are honestly no employees.
right,
So it all starts with yes, it starts with the outside, the demand for your products, projects, services. And at the same time, then you have to have your wonderful employees who will have to build that business. So I think even in times like these, we have to understand what's happening outside and make sure that our employees are all geared up to protecting our turfs, our businesses, our services.
right.
And you need this combination of outside in and inside out coupling.
Hmm,
And yes, pressures are there. I think they'll always be.
right.
And I don't think the quarter on quarter is not, I don't think it's a bad thing. Let me tell you,
Not I say so.
yeah,
Yeah,
let me tell you that if we did not have this pressure, maybe we will not, as companies, be that agile, because we are accountable to our stakeholders, we are accountable to our customers, and
right,
this is helping us be agile and be on the treadmill.
right. So I
Otherwise,
think it's also the ability to take pressure, become innovative. Look at things in a different manner at times. Put the stuff on its head. Look at other different perspectives. How to manage the same stuff in a different manner. Okay. I therefore believe that there's a latent leader in all of us, and we discussed this earlier on, right? What would be your advice? And it'll be guilt edged because it comes from you. What would be your advice to everyone around? How do I harness my leadership potential? I think everyone has that question, so I ask for myself.
yeah. See, I cannot say what others will do. I will tell you how I have shaped my leadership. Um, my leadership style or my leadership edge has been shaped in like the alphabet T.
Right,
So for the first 20 years, it's been a very narrow path, like the vertical segment of alphabet T. In the
right.
last 10 years, it's broadened up the top horizontal path.
Okay,
So I am a firm believer that you have to build expertise in the early part of your career. That will give you an edge on leadership. That's what is the purpose why people will come to you. And
right,
then as you increase, as you become known as an expert in your field, then other things will start getting added to your career. So I don't think I'm all for being a specialist in your craft.
right,
Uh, and therefore, going back to the question, why were you born?
right,
You
right.
know, what
So,
were you supposed to do? What are you supposed to hone? Because very early on, Sachin Tendulkar also realized he's not going to be a bowler. He's
right,
not. The cricketer is not the narrow. Is not narrow. Is not narrow enough.
right, right.
A batsman within batsman is it opener. So
Yeah,
I think understanding what were you born, therefore honing that craft for the early part of your years, at least in the business,
right,
and then slowly enough, other parts will get added, and you will become an alphabet T. By the time you are 20, 25 years into your career. So that's would be my kind of.
So that's an interesting, the alphabet T, because we are all talking right now V recoveries and W recoveries and I don't know, hockey recoveries. So I think that's another one to the lexicon, right? Adding the word T, and I think it very well defined and described. So quite evidently, there are two forms of leadership, right? Or leadership genres, if I may say. The good old traditional based on command and control, right? And then the other one, which is emerging, which you mentioned, right? More data driven, open ended, flexible from a leadership perspective. And the leader would have to work with both. I think he will have to get a balance from both. And, to be critical for success. So what's your observation in the real world on the above phenomena? That's one part. And then there's a question which came in from a CEO, Mr. Sethuram from Piramal. He says, since we are talking of leaders for business organization, what are the summary of the top 6 qualities of the leader? And would that differ from domains to sectors or industries specifically in India? So if you could take both, and if you want, I will repeat them just in case you would. But
I think I get it. So let me take that first. I think if you were to have a top 6, the first one is around setting up understanding the big, hairy, audacious thing I want to do
the
in my
bags.
sector business, the bag. So the audacious, because people are attracted to audacious visions.
Right.
People want to show up and do something meaningful, and audacious visions with a purpose that is what is going to happen. Sustainable organizations with a purpose. So that's what I would put it in the first label of hairy, audacious goals with a purpose.
Right.
Is the ability to execute on that vision, because you can't be a paper tiger or be like a consultant who will just come and advise. Today, you have to be an execution consultant as well, and execute. More importantly, execute in a world-class way. I think today, as a country, we need world-class. We need to understand what's the definition of a world-class. It pains me, and I talk to my father saying, why is it you're a civil engineer that our footpaths cannot be aligned? Why is it that a person on a wheelchair cannot take the wheelchair on the footpath? Why are we not focused on excellence in civil engineering, in designing a road? Why are we not having a road where you can have a cup of coffee in your car without the coffee spilling?
Right.
So obviously we are not building, designing, manufacturing for excellence. So I would say execute for excellence, execute for world-class, anything that we do. And I want to spend a little time, because I think we are not focusing on execution, because somewhere our jugaad culture goes against world class.
Right.
And it's an irony when you bring in a lot of people who have not exposed to world class products and projects, and then they come into an organization, are expected to create world class products. It's something which requires training. We have to open our minds to it and say what is world class. So execution on world class. Third is about the agility, the learning agility, when to know that my approach is not working. I need to change, I need to move, I need to induce change. You will see many great leaders, they bring in change after a few years to make sure that the company is agile. So agility and ability to make change would be my third recommendation. The fourth is about winning the hearts and minds of people and bringing in collaboration between different functions. So actually, let me split that into 4 and 5. The fourth is about ability to work with people, because if you can't, if it's about followership, it's not about leadership.
Leadership, yes.
The fifth one is about innovation. How does innovation happen today? Innovation happens at the marriage of two functions. It's at the cusp when, for example, I talk about cars. If you see cars today, they are mechanical product, more product for electronics and ICs. So really, when mechanical engineering marries technology like ICs, that's where the cars are going. So really, the interplay between two functions, two technologies, is where when HR meets technology, that's where the world is going in HR. When, so in marketing, again, social media and marketing coming together.
Right.
In supply chain, it's about bitcoins and supply chain coming together. That's where the world is going. Your ability to integrate two, different functions for innovation. So I would stop at 5.
Please carry on. Sorry.
No, I would stop at 5 because,
I was only going to add maybe the sixth one, what they always used to say Steve Jobs had, which is the ability to connect the dots, make a picture, build a product, and then take it. And well, we know the success of Apple. All of us, we do. Okay. Now, so, what comes to my mind is that, so there's a question from Anand. In these challenging times of uncertainty, where in business models, jobs, leadership styles, and business are evolving, calls for evolution of leadership. What are the challenges the leader face today in the face of this evolution? I think you've spent quite some time talking, but maybe you could just,
I think the biggest challenge is the ability to manage all the contradictions I spoke about, focusing on welfare of employees.
Right.
At the same time, focusing on productivity. If I'm too welfare oriented and not enough business oriented, it's a problem.
Right.
So how do you, so there are various contradictions, focusing on this quarter and
Right.
forgetting about new business models which must come in, so that again is a contradiction. So I have to manage my business today. At the same time, I have to bring in disruption through
Right.
digital business models. So I would say managing these, paradoxes
Right.
is one of the challenges. And I think in terms of the evolutionary leadership style, Anand, one thing today which is very, very important, and resilience, of course, is being spoken about. And I've talked about learning agility, so I will not report that, but humility.
Oh, yes.
Today, does anyone know when COVID will end? When will the vaccine come? When will it be safe for you to go back to attending, big events? The answer is no. So what do the biggest leaders do? I find the biggest leaders have humility to understand that they don't have all the answers on the supply side, on the demand side, because both are shrinking. And therefore, they have the humility to bring in a coalition of experts and say, let me listen to others, let me understand different perspectives, connect the dots, as you said. When do you connect the dots? When you have the humility to say to yourselves, I don't have all the data, I don't have all. So you're collecting dots and you start being humble and start listening to others who may have a few other dots for them to give to you.
Right. So I think we are nearing towards the tail of the. But I need to do two things quickly. Summarize. So what I made some notes. So the agile leader of today and the future, I think, needs to be a learner rather than be a specialist, because then examples as you gave, digital transformation. Today's leaders need to be adaptive rather than be a constant. Sometimes combos will work good. Tactician versus the visionary who move towards an objective without defined milestones. I think, you need to build an aeroplane while it is flying. I think that's the place, that's the times we are in. The power holder versus the power sharer. I think the lines are getting blurred, right? And intuition versus analytical. So while, the good old leaders always move by the gut, now you need to look at those spreadsheets and look at those data sheets and then take that informed decision and call. And the perfectionist and the accelerator. We find all these guys who create the Zomatos of the world and the Swiggies of the world, fail fast, learn, move quickly. I think these looks like where, the topic we started, how leadership is getting evolved and how leaderships are getting evolved over a dynamic. I said workspace, but I think world space. I think that's how the globe is moving, right? So the future leader needs to be more self-aware. He needs to learn, adapt, practice. This is what you told us. He needs to be aware contextually and should have strong emotional intelligence. So while we have been able to do this within the time, I have 4 minutes, and I'm not letting you go. I think the audience would like to know Vikram Bector a little bit better. You've pushed the bar for many amongst us as leaders to look at where we should be going, right? So I'm taking the liberty of going to be asking you a few questions, which I think will bring a little bit towards the fun part, if I may say. We at 3P are pretty uptight and pretty, but well, we have a funny side to us too. So I want to ask you, so there are these 4 or 5 questions I picked them up from a show. If there was going to be an autobiography, and I wish and hope with the kind of experience you carry, you should write one someday. Right. Autobiography and not a biography, right? What would you have called it? Or what would you name it?
Good guys finish first too.
That's a good one. Okay. I always thought I finished last. Okay, I have hope. All right. And to do that, if you had a superpower, if someone granted you a superpower when you were running on the beach and came across a Aladdin lamp, what is that superpower that you would like to have?
Oh, I would immediately remove all inequality and poverty. I will remove all the distances on religion, color of the skin, gender, Hindu, Muslim, or all of those in one wand. And also, most importantly, the monetary disparity.
I would say the power be with you. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
What is the book that you may have read which would have shaped stuff positively for you?
I think I read a couple of books at the same time, and I was just there'll be more than a couple, but I would say there's a book by David Rock which shaped my thinking on coaching. So Coaching by David Rock.
Okay. I don't know that. I'm going to read it up. Let's get a little bit more personal. If there was a choice, would you like a rewind button in life, or a pause, or a fast forward?
Actually, none of the above. Okay. I'm loving life. Honestly, philosophically speaking, there are problems to be solved. There are many problems. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed by them. Right. But I guess, as long as there is food on the table, you have a job, and there are some problems to be solved, life's good. So I'm okay. I don't want anything rewind.
So the next few coming your way are, we have to kill this in a minute. So they'll be like one word stuff. Sorry to ask, but what would have been your worst nickname as a kid?
Oh, my worst nickname was Camel.
Camel, because of the height that you have?
Yes.
For those who can't see him because he's sitting, he's what, 6'6", 6'7"? All right. Okay, I'm there. All right. Your favorite web series or TV show?
Oh, this one, actually, there's a web series which I'm currently, it's about 11 serials on Michael Jordan, the famous basketball, The Last Dance.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful one. Yes. Yeah. So, Punjabi like me and you, food, which is what comes to mind. We are nearing lunchtime.
Okay, curry chawal.
Okay, all right. So next time I come to Bombay, I can get some good curry chawal. Okay. And who makes you laugh the most?
I think my son. He has got a gift of the gab. He's very good with words. So
wonderful.
Son, yeah.
And a movie character you would have loved to play?
A movie character.
Not Amitabh Bachchan because of your height, but anyone else.
I would say Mickey Mouse.
Oh, all right. Okay. I'm trying to figure you out. Okay. And what would be your happy song?
My happy song is a Hindi song. It's a Kishore song, which is Pal Dil Ki Tum Rehti Ho.
Okay. Last bit, your final message to our audience before I close the show.
I would say I'll repeat what I said earlier. Life's good, if you have a job, if you have food on your table, and you have some good relationship, life's good. Let's celebrate it. I think we it's not that bad. Look at others who are migrating, others who are going through a lot of pain. Most of us who are on this webinar on Zoom are privileged people. So let's have some gratitude and enjoy life.
Yeah. So be humble for what you have, right? And work hard towards providing for others if you can. I think that's what you'd like to say. So thank you very much, Victor. Wonderful. I never realized 60 minutes have just gone. And, it's been a privilege having spoken to you and talked to you in presence of so many guests whom I would like to thank to be hanging on. We still have 110 showing up. Just before we go, there is a small, as I mentioned, this is a webinar series that at 3P we are doing. So we are now, just want to let you know that the next one is happening on the 24th of this month, on July 11:30. The links, etc., will come up, but that is between Nirmit, who is the managing director for 3P. He's going to be into a conversation with the chairperson of Thermax, Ms. Meher Padamji. And it's going to be on succession planning, right? And so tune into that too. I'm sure it'll be a great one because it's about a large company, promoter-driven stuff, etc., etc. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying back. And Vikram, thank you so very much. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.
Congratulations. Thank you.